Hey guys, so this week's video is about creating graphs and charts and tables using Excel data. Now, for your integrated assignment 1, you guys should remember that for the task you would need to create either bar graphs, line graphs, tables, or pie charts, depending on the task, right? So there are 5 case studies, right? Each of you guys are assigned to a case study, and I will talk about each one of those case studies, and in the description I'll have a link to where I talk about each case study in detail, so you could go click on the time stamp where your case study is, so that way you could start from that point, and instead of hearing about every single different case study, if you would like. Now, I want to tell you guys, I changed up all the numbers for this example, right? So if it doesn't look exactly the same as yours, it shouldn't, because I changed up the numbers for this example. I'm going to show you guys how to create different graphs, right? So for each of these numbers, for example, for cholera in the population, I changed it. The deaths, I changed it, right? The deaths in the cities, populations for every single one of these cases, I already changed the numbers. So it's not going to look exactly the same, but the idea is going to be the same for each case study. All right, so let's get started. For cholera, right? What did it ask us to do in the task? Using the word by word table, create a table in which you calculate the percentage of total deaths from cholera for each ward, rank the wards, and then create a bar chart representing this table. Now, the key term there is total deaths, right? Percentage of total deaths. So let's look at our table. We want to always, for each task, we want to always create a new sheet. In that sheet, we want to copy and paste our original data and paste it right here. All right, so let's make this a little bit bigger so it looks nicer. All right, click on this. So first thing we have to do is calculate the total deaths there are, right? So to do that, let's create a new column called total, right? Total right here. And it's not asked for, but we could essentially calculate the total population as well, right? That was in all the wards. So, but for this case, let's calculate the total deaths. So it'd be equal sum, highlight all of them. Sum, remember, means the total, right? And we have a total of 2,070 deaths, right? We could do the same thing for population. If you hit equal and equal sum and then highlight the population, you could get that. Now it's asking us for create a table in which you calculate the percentage of total deaths, right? So we want to create a new column, and this one we want to call it percentage of total deaths, right? Make this a little bit bigger. Click on that, right? Now for each one of them, for each ward, we want the deaths divided by the total deaths, right? That gives us 0.06, right? And if we click on percentage, about 2% is in ward 1, and then you could do this for all of them. But now here I want to teach you guys a trick. If I just slit it down, I get all these DIVs, right? What does that mean? This one, what did it do? It calculated wards 1 deaths divided by total. This one, it did wards 2 death divided by a bottom number. Why is it going to the bottom? Because Excel is thinking that you wanted to copy. If you go one cell down, you carry the whole equation one cell down. So this one is 2 cells down, right? So 2 steps down. It's dividing by some number that's 2 steps down, but obviously there's nothing there. That's why you're getting that error, right? DIV. Now to fix that, what you do is you want to lock this. You want to tell Excel to lock this number. Keep on changing the wards, right? The deaths for each cell, right? But lock the total number. The way you lock it is you put a dollar sign in front of the letter and a dollar sign in front of the number. So C19 in this case is our total. So we want to put a dollar sign in front of the C and a dollar sign in front of the 19. Let's delete this all, right? And now if we drag this down, it calculates it for all of them, right? So if you see C5, which is this one, divided by the total, and then C8 divided by the total, so it's locking it in, right? So that's the percentage of total. Next thing, rank the wards and then create a bar chart, right? Next, you want to create a rank, right? Rank them, so which ward has the most deaths, which ward has the least deaths, right? You rank it from highest to lowest. So most deaths would be 1, right? So let's get started. This would be 1, and then the next one will be 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth, right? Some of them you'll see them have the same percentages, right? So 2, 2, 2, 6, 6, 6, right? Then go back to the original number. Go back to the original number. You see this is 2% and this is 2%, but they're different numbers, 34, 42, 46, right? So rank it in that order, okay? Lastly, for this one, rank the wards. We did that. Create a bar chart that represents this table. Now to create the bar chart, what I want to do is, I don't like the fact that there's all twos even though they're different numbers. I'm going to highlight these numbers and increase the decimal places, right? So now you could definitely tell that one is 1.64, the other one's 2, the other one's 2.2, right? So there definitely is a difference. Now to create a bar chart, we just highlight these numbers, click on Insert, Bar Chart, or Column Chart, right? Click on the first one, and it gives us a nice bar chart that tells us which each wards are, right? Ward 1 through 15, and tells us which percent, tells us which ward has the most um, deaths, right, from the total, and it has a percentage. Now, this is not a complete chart. You would need to label it, right? So there's multiple ways of labeling it, right? You could plus if you have this option, access titles. This would be ward. This would be percentage of total death, right? Title would be percentage of total deaths in 15 wards, right? In New York City, right? That's how you would put it. Percentage of total deaths from wards in New York City, something like that, right? Now, if you don't have this option of pressing plus, right, to add the access titles, there's also, you go to, if you click away and you click on this, chart design, on the left-hand corner, there's add chart elements. You could add access titles, horizontal axis, vertical axis. Again, this is percentage, and this is going to be percentage of total death, and this is going to be ward, right? So that's how you would do task 1. Now, task 2. So let me delete this, right? Let's delete all this over here. We don't need that, right? If you're doing task 2, again, actually I'll leave this for task 1, right? I want to create a new sheet, right? This one, again, for task 2, we're using the same data. So copy. Let's paste it over here. Let's move this down. Move this down. It's asking us, using the word by word table, create a table in which you calculate the percentage of population that died from cholera from each ward. Rank the wards and then create a bar chart that represents this data. So very simple, right? But instead of doing the total deaths, right, we want to compare it to the population, right? Here, this is the table that I'm asking for. Remember, to make a table, you could just highlight the whole thing, click on borders, all borders, and there you have a nice bordered table, and here's your bar chart. For this one, very similar. Now you want to calculate the percentage, but instead of percentage of total, you want to find out percentage of population. So percentage, so what do we call this? Percentage of total death. This one is going to be percentage of population. So let's make this bigger. And there's going to have another set for a rank. Right? So for each population, we're going to find percentage. So equal sign this, the number of deaths divided by the population, right? And then we scroll this down, right? It's it's a very small numbers, right? Because not that many people died from the population, but when you create the graph, you'll see that makes a difference, right? Let's make this into a percentage, and then I want to couple of places over, right? So I know that they're not 0%, and then I could start ranking them. So for the rank, right, you put the highest as number one. So this one in my case, right, with the numbers changed, here's number one, and then you go on and so forth. I'm gonna highlight, click on insert, bar chart, create the bar chart. So that's how it's gonna look like, right? Again, remember, have the axis, percentage of population. This is going to be your ward. Title is going to be very similar, but instead of percentage of total deaths, it's going to be percentage of population from wards in New York City. Last task, task 3 in cholera. Using the deaths in selected cities table, create a table in which you calculate the percentage of population that died from cholera for each city. Rank the cities and then create a bar graph. So again, another bar graph. I'm going to go to our original. This time we're talking about this table right here, right? So let's copy down. Actually, let's create a sheet, a new sheet, right? So this is going to be task 3, right? So remember, you guys could rename it, right? Right click, rename task 1, task 2, task 3, right? So I'm going to copy this, Control C, paste it, right? Make this a little bit bigger, make this a little bit bigger so it's spaced out. I'm going to zoom out so I can see everything. All right. So it's asking us, create a table in which you calculate the percentage of population that died, right? Percentage of population that died. So we have the reported attack rates, right? We have the reported fatality, but we don't really know how many died from the population, right? So we're going to create a new column called percentage of population death percentage, right? So percentage of death, that's a better way of writing it. Percent of death from of population, right? So how did I mention it? Percentage of population that died, right? So percentage of death population, that's another way of putting it. So again, let's stretch this out, and we're gonna have a rank. So again, very similar to the ward one, right? We're gonna do the deaths divided by the population. Do it for one, bring it down, do it for all of them. We want to put this in percentage, and then I want to have it 2 decimal places, right? That way I see some variation, and then rank them. Rank the cities, and then create a bar chart, right? So I want to know which cities was one highest up till which city was the last place, right? Then create a bar graph again, highlight, insert, bar chart. You have here your bar chart. Now over here, if you did it in the wards, right, it would make sense. You would have ward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 15. But here, these aren't wards, these are cities, right? So we want to put cities in the bottom. The way we do that is, let me delete this, right? We want to highlight the cities, right? Holding control if you have a Windows, or holding command if you have a PC. highlight the population as well, right? And then insert bar graph, the first one. Now you have all the cities labeled, and it looks nice. You know which percentage is for which cities. Again, label the x-axis as cities, label the y-axis of percentage of death, and then the title should be percentage of deaths of population in how many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 major cities, right? So percentage of death of populations of 12 major cities. That would be your title. So that's basically it for cholera. Moving on to the blizzard. For the blizzard, it says for each one of the tasks, you're going to be creating some sort of for task 1 to a line chart, and for the third one, you're going to be creating a table, right? So using let's look at the first one. Using the snowfall table, create a line chart that represents the area affected by each date, right? With a separate line for each increment of snowfall. 4 inches, 10 inches, 20 inches, 30 inches, right? So this is going to be the data we're going to be looking at, right? So let's create a new sheet, right? Rename this task 1. We're going to copy and paste our data that we're going to be working with, right? The top and the bottom is mainly reference data. We don't really need that for much. Paste it, and let me slide this over. Let me zoom out a little so we can see all our data, right? So there we have it. So the first one, it says it represents the area affected, line chart that represents the area affected with a separate line for each increment, right? Now to do this, we want to create another table that's a little bit more cleaner, right? So let's call this date. Let's call this 4 inch. Let's call this 10 inch of snow, 20 inch of snow, and 30 inch of snow. The date is going to be exactly the same, right? So I'm going to copy only the values. So right click, paste. I'm going to paste only the values. Now for the areas, again, I want, for task 1, I'm looking at area only. So right click, copy, paste only the values, right? Same thing. Control C is copy also, only the values. Control V is paste. If you're on a Mac, that's Command C and Command V. But all I'm doing is just organizing. So this is just our area that we're talking about and not the population. And we're just looking at this spot right here. Now, if you want to create a line chart, all you do is highlight this entire table, go to Insert, this one right here, Insert Line or Area Chart, click on the first one, and there you have your line chart, right? Let me zoom out a little. Put this over here, right? It doesn't, I'm going to block it, but I just want you guys to be able to see it, right? So the blue line is 4 inch, the orange line is 10 inch, the gray line is 20 inch, the yellow line is 30 inch. So each line shows a different increment of snowfall, right? And the horizontal axis shows the date, the vertical axis shows the area affected, right? Again, this is not a complete table. You want to add axis title, so you press plus axis titles, right? This would be the area, right? Area in millions, I would believe, right? Area in square miles, excuse me. Area in square miles. So you would put right here, you would type up area in square miles, right? And this would be snowfall date. Snowfall date. What? Date. Okay, right? So, and here would be line graph. The title would be line graph of 6 major, line graph of what, right? Areas affected by 6 major snowstorms. Right? So again, right, this is just, I'm doing it really fast just to show you guys an example, but this is how you would do it. If you don't see this plus button, right, if you don't see that right there, one way you could do that is, again, click on the table. On the right hand side, there should be something called add chart elements, add axis titles, primary, and then primary horizontal, and then primary vertical, one by one. You would do that and then you would fill it in. All right. Now, for task 2, it's basically the same idea, right? If we're going to do task 2, you create a new sheet, right? I'm going to copy this for task 2. Make a little bit of space. Let me zoom out a little. So task 1, we basically did it, right? We create a line graph for 4 seconds, each increments. For task 2, it's basically the same thing, but instead of looking at the area, this time you're looking at the population. So for the population, just like we created a table right here for the area, I'm going to create the same type of table, but this time for the population. So remember, what did we do? So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to paste it here so I have an idea, but now I'm not going to copy the areas, but this time I'm going to copy the population. So let me try to copy them all together, see what happens. So I'm holding control, right? After you highlight one of them, you hold control and it keeps on letting you highlight multiple, or command if you're on a Mac. So and then control C is copy. Let's try to paste them all together. Oh, it worked perfectly fine. Right, it worked perfectly fine. Again, highlight this, insert line graph. First one, we have very similar. We have a second line graph, right? Here, now the vertical axis is going to be population, right, in millions, and the horizontal axis is going to be dates. The title chart is going to be very similar to the one I showed you just a couple of minutes ago, right? But instead, it says instead of total line graph of areas affected, this one should say line graph of population affected, right? Or populations affected by 6 major snowstorms. So for task 3, we say using the snowfall table, again the same table, create a table in which you calculate the percentage of total population affected by the snowfall for each year, right? So now we're looking at each year. So again, let's create a new sheet, right? So this is going to be for task 3. Task 1, rename this task 2. This is for task 3. We're going to copy the table. Again, let me space this out, right? Zoom out, fix this, right? So it's asking us for population percentage of total population. So we want to calculate the entire population that was affected. Now we want to create a new column called total, and we want to calculate the total amount of population affected each snowstorm. So sum, we want to take population here, comma, population 10-inch, comma, population 20-inch, comma, population 30-inch, and parentheses. So don't put that fourth comma, right? So this is going to be for each year. You drag this down, and your entire total is going to be the sum of all of these. 512. And then to calculate your percentage, so percentage of population affected, right? Let me drag this out, right? Fix this right here. This is going to be, again, each one of your totals divided by your cumulative total. Now if I drag this down, look what happens. Right? I get these errors, right? The reason is because this is looking at your first cell divided by your total. This is going to look at your second cell divided by, you see how it's moving down? So it's going to, Excel thinks that you want the equation to also move down along with it, right? So the last one is down here, right? Now to fix that, we want to lock this in, lock this total in. The way you lock it in is you put a $sign in front of the letter and in front of the number. So this is J10, right? Column J, row 10. We want to lock that and we want to hit enter. So now if I drag it down, it knows that for every single one of them, I want to lock it down to J10, and I just want to only change this, each of these different dates, right? Dividing by that. Now I want this in percentage, so highlight percentage. It gives it to me. Again, I could do this in 2 decimal places. So that gives me that. Now if I want to create a table out of all of it, I go like this. There, a nice table is created, right? So that's all that's asked for in task 3. Using the snowfall, create a table, and then calculate the percentage of total population affected. Now, for the heat wave case study, for the tasks, I expect you guys to do a line chart for task 1, a line chart for task 2, and a pie chart, 3 pie charts, right? Choose 3 and create a pie chart, right, for task 3. So let's start with task 1. Using the death certificates field, filed table, create a line chart that shows the number of death certificates filed each day in Brooklyn or Manhattan, with a separate line for 1895 and a separate one for 1896. So here's our data. Let me zoom out a little, right? We're going to be looking at the death certificates filed, so we're going to be looking at this table mainly, right? So I want to right click, copy it, right? And I want to create a new sheet, right? That way it doesn't mess around with our original. Paste it, right? These are your dates, right? So we have it. Let me zoom out a little. There we can see all of it. This I'm going to now it's asking us to do what? Using the death certificates, create a line chart that shows the number of death certificates filed each day, right? So there's different days in Manhattan or in Brooklyn or Manhattan, with a separate line for 1985 and a separate line for 1986. So here we have from August 4th to August 17th, and then we have the total. We have 2 separate years. So remember, we're making a line graph, and we're going to have 2 lines on it. One line for 1895 and one line for 1896, right? So you have a choice. Either you could do Manhattan or you could do Brooklyn, right? So I'm going to choose Manhattan. So I'm going to create a separate table right here that's going to help me, right? So this one's going to have all the data from 1895. This one's going to have all the data from 1896. This is going to be the date, right? And all I'm going to do is just copy this and paste it, right? So if you did Brooklyn, it would be the same exact thing, but instead of copying the Manhattan data, you would copy the Brooklyn data. Next thing, you would want to highlight right here, click insert, choose this option right here for the line chart, click the first one. There you have your line chart, right? Now we have series 1 and series 2, right? We don't know what that means, series 1 and series 2. So to fix that, if you get this kind of error, what you want to do is delete this date, right? That's to get us into understanding what this is, right? Let's delete this chart. Now if I highlight this whole thing, including these two, 1985, 1986, and click insert, now they know that the blue line represents 1895, and the orange line 1896, right? Again, this chart is incomplete. You want to add the axis, right? So this is going to be the number of death certificates filed. This is going to be the date. Chart title is going to be, since I'm doing Manhattan, is going to be number of death certificates filed in Manhattan, right? So this is going to be for Manhattan. If you do one for Brooklyn, it's going to look a little bit different, right? But it's going to be called different. You're going to write in Brooklyn, but the axis is going to be the same. Number of death certificates filed, and this is going to be the date, right? Now, if you see it like this, I don't like in this format. You see how it looks all um, smushed together, right? So try to extend it. If you see it like that, right, it's a little bit easier to see. Or sometimes if you have it like this, then it's a little bit easier to see as well, right? If you don't see this plus button on your computer, another way you could do it is you click away, click on the graph, on the chart design, on the left hand side, add chart element, access titles. You could add the primary horizontal, primary vertical, and then label them that way. Now for task 2, using the death certificates file table, so using the same table now, create a line chart that shows the combined number of death certificates, right? So you add up to 1985 and 1895 and 1896 deaths filed each day with a separate line for Brooklyn and a separate line for Manhattan. So instead of this one is just Manhattan, and if you created one just Brooklyn, that's a different one, right? But this time, instead of the two lines being different years, we want to have two lines being different boroughs, right? So again, let's create a new sheet. That's going to be our task 2. So again, copy our original data. And again, remember that I changed the numbers around for the purposes of this video, right? So if you won't have the same exact numbers, right? But the idea of creating the graphs is the same, right? So going back, it's asking us combined number of deaths, right? So we want to create a new table now, right? So we're going to call this date, right? And it's going to be for Brooklyn, and this is going to be for Manhattan, right? So we're creating a separate table for Brooklyn and Manhattan, right? And we want combined. So the date is going to be the same exact dates, right? Control C copy, Control V paste. I'm going to extend this so we get all the date names, right? Now for Brooklyn, we want the combined. So combined means sum, so add it up. We want to combine it for August 4th. We want to combine these two. Hit enter. For Manhattan, same thing. Equal sign, sum. We want it for those 2 years. Add up these two. We get 206. Now you do this for every single one of them, but the easier way is you highlight both and you drag this button down, right? When it becomes a plus, you go to the corner, it becomes a plus, you drag it down. It gives you the combined death certificates filed in those 2 years, right? Again, remember, delete the date, right, to make the graph, highlight everything, including the Brooklyn, Manhattan, insert, there you have it, right? You have your dates, you have blue is Manhattan, blue is Brooklyn, orange is Manhattan. Remember, add the axis, right? This is going to be number of death certificate filed in number of death certificate filed. This would be date, and the title this time would be number of death certificate filed for 2 boroughs, right? So number of deaths filed uh, between of not between of 2 boroughs, right? The 2 boroughs being Manhattan and Brooklyn. So that's how you would create for 2 separate boroughs. Task 3, we're going to be looking at a different table now. We're going to be using the who died table, right? Out of the 5 classifications, there's 5 types: age, gender, class of dwelling, occupation, native, immigrant, or other. Choose 3 and create a pie chart for each of your chosen classifications. So we're going to be copying this right here, right? So let's copy this table right here. Actually, we're going to make a new sheet, right? So that's going to be our new sheet. Right click, copy, right? Copy this entire table. Paste it. I'm going to paste it just like how it was. Now let me extend this so it looks better, right? Let me zoom out, highlight all of these. Let me actually See, I don't like this taking up so much space. Highlighting all. Click that. Yep, that's much better. Right? Now there's 5 classifications. There's the immigrant, Native American or other, class dwelling, gender, occupation, and age, right? Each one of them has a separate component. So I want you to create 3 pie charts, right? So choose 3 of these and create pie charts. I'm going to show you how to do one, but the idea is exactly the same. So the way you do that is without highlighting this bold one, right? Without highlighting the one that shows the classification, just highlight the ones that have the numbers, right? So immigrant, native, and unknown, and highlight the numbers associated with it, right? Actually, I'll do, yeah, you choose 3. So I'll just do this one, right? You highlight those, hit insert, pie chart. There you have it. There you have your pie chart of your immigrant, native, or other, right? So the title here would be, this is going to be called legal status, right? So, or immigration status. Immigration status of who died on August 11, 1896, right? So if you chose this one, this would be called immigration status. If you chose another one, it would be class of dwelling of who died, right? Basically like that. And here I like this one a lot because it tells you the percentage as well. So let me zoom out a little bit, right? It tells you not only what the graph is, but it tells you the percentage, right? So 82% of the people that died were immigrants, 11% were white, 11% were white, yep, 1% was non-white natives, and 6% were unknown. So that's a nice way. You do the same steps for any 3 that you choose, right? It doesn't have to be this first one, right? It could be like age of who died on, or occupation of who died, or class of dwelling of who died on, and so on and so forth, right? You could do that. So that's it for the heat wave. Now going on to the triangle factory. For the triangle factory, I'm asking you guys to create a table for task 1, 3 pie charts for task 2, and a line graph for task 3. Remember, you're doing only 2 out of these 3 tasks, so you don't have to do all 3 of them, but I would highly recommend you would watch through them all, that way you have a better understanding. So for the first one, using the name of fire victim tables, create a table that lists the following variables, right? The number of victims, the age of the youngest victim, the age of the oldest victim, and average age of victims. So we're looking at this table right here, right? Name of fire victims, right? So we're going to copy and paste this entire table, right? Create a new sheet, right? This is going to be our task 1, right? Copy it. So right click, copy, and we want to paste it, right? Let me make this a little bit bigger. And for all these, I don't want such a big space, so I just clicked one, went all the way down. Right, click right here. That moves it all up, I believe. Yep. Right, so we want to create a table right here. And the tables, we want to have the variables being number of victims, so count, age of youngest victim, so minimum, age of oldest victim, maximum, and then average. Those are the ones we're going to be looking at. So going back to the table, right? So we want to have a couple of variables here, right? So number of victims, right? We want to have oldest victim, youngest victim, and we want to also have average age of victim, right? So we want to know all of those Now click this, right? We want to know all of those variables. Right, that's all we want for the first table. Now to count the number of victims, right? We want to make sure we count all the names and not the numbers, right? Because as you see, some of the people don't have a blank for their age. They didn't want to disclose it, right? So the formula we use is equals count A, right? So it counts A, not just the count. Open parentheses, highlight all the names, hit enter, and it'll tell you that there's 155 victims. Now for the oldest victim, you want to use the formula equal sign max, right? And you want to highlight all the numbers. Enter, it gives you the maximum age. Youngest, very similar, but this time use minimum number. Highlight all the numbers. Enter, gives you the minimum age. And lastly, average, equal sign average, same thing. Highlight all the numbers. Close parentheses. Right? Enter, gives you the average age, right? Sometimes you might get a decimal, right? Something like that, just put it into, remember this is how you put it into whole number, right? Right here, all borders, and there you have your table. Task 2. Using the average weekly hours, create 3 pie charts for 1900, 1910, and 1920 that show the average weekly hours worked between the 5 industries. So we want to create a new sheet again, right? It's going to be a blank sheet. And remember, this is going to be for task 1, so right click, rename this task 1 if you worked on task 1, right? Now we want to copy and paste. I'm going to copy and paste this table right here because that's what we've been working with. So highlight, copy into our new one, right? Rename this task 2 if you're working on it. Paste it, and let's drag this out so we have a little bit more space to work with. So task 2 is asking us for 3 pie charts, right, that show the average weekly hours worked between the 5 industries. The 5 industries being the manufacturing, construction, railroads, and the 2 technicals, right? And we only want it for these 3 years, 1900s, 1910, and 1920. Now the fastest way to do that is you highlight these 5 numbers, holding control, right, or command if you're on Mac, highlight the 5 industries as well, insert pie, and there you have your pie chart, right? You could choose, I like this one a lot, right, because it tells you the percentage as well, it tells you each colors is representing which of the industries, right? And here you would write the title being average weekly hours worked, right? So average weekly hours worked. So this would be pie chart of average weekly hours worked for 5 industries. Remember, in 1900, right? So that's really important. This one's for the 1900 one, right? You would have a different pie graph for the 1910 and a separate one for 1920, right? So make sure, again, remember you just highlight, right? So if you want one for 1910, you would just highlight, hold control, highlight this as well, insert pie chart. See, it's a little bit similar, but you see the numbers are a little bit different, right? So that's how you could create it, right? If you're having trouble with the highlighting, easier, another way is you just copy this, put on the bottom, right? And then copy this, put this in the bottom as well, right? So for 1910, then you don't have to hold control or anything, you just highlight these 2 and then insert your pie chart. There you have it. This one's nice because it tells you the percentages easier. Remember, put the title, and that's you would have to create 3 pie charts: one for 1900s, one for 1910, and one for 1920, right? And place them nicely so it's easy for me to go through them, right? Maybe next to each other, right? So I can compare each one of them, and that's how you would have 2, and then you will create one more 3 pie charts. For task 3, you're asked to create a line chart using that same table, right? That represents the average weekly hours each year, right? Worked each year from 1890 to 1995, right? The graph should include a separate line for each industry. So going back to right here, right? So we're going to be working on this table again. Again, let's make a new sheet, all right? So this is going to be for task 3. Let's copy our data, original data for task 3, right? Again, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, right? So we have this, and it asks us to make a line graph of average hours worked from 1890 to 1955. So from here downwards, right? So we don't want all of them, we just want from 1890 to 1955. Now the best way to do that is create a separate table, right, with the 5 industries. So let's copy that, Control C. Let's paste it down here, right? And we don't want all the data, we want only from 1890 to 1955. So copy that and paste it right underneath, right? So this is the table we're going to be working with. And the easiest way to make a line graph out of this is just highlight them all, insert, choose this first one, right? This one that says insert line, choose the first one. And here you have your line graph, right? So let me zoom out a little, make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. All right, maybe if I hide this. All right, so the dark blue is manufacturing, the orange is construction, the gray is railroad, the yellow is bit coal, and the light blue is ant coal, right? And it's incomplete because it doesn't label what the axes are, right? So remember, if you press on it and there's this plus sign, that's the easiest way, right? You hit axis titles. This is average number of hours worked, right? That's your vertical axis. Your horizontal axis is your year, and your title would be average number of um, hours worked for 5 industries, right? So that would be your title, right? Average number of hours. What happened? Oh, average number of hours, weekly hours, or hours per week, right? Hours worked per week for 5 industries, right? Here you would fill it in, and that would be your line graph. If you don't have this plus button, right, the way you can access it is you let me you click on it, right? You click on the graph. There's this chart design button over here on the left hand corner. There's add chart element, access titles. You go to primary, horizontal comes up, and then primary vertical, and the vertical comes up, and then label. Remember, this is the average number of hours worked per week, and this is the year. So that's it for that line graph. Now, going on to the blackout. For the blackout case study, you have 3 tasks. First one says you have to create a table, right? So using the relevant statistics table, create a table that lists the percent of change between 1977 and normal for the following indices, right? Indexes: arrests, injuries to firefighters, fires reported, alarms, both single and multiple, and personnel, both police force and firearm. So we're going to be looking at the relevant statistics. So this is our data. This is our relevant statistics. Let's create a new sheet. right? We're going to be calling this task 1, right? This is going to be task 1 for the blackout. So let's copy this table right here. Copy it and let's paste it, right? So let's drag it out so it's easier to see. Right, let me zoom out a little. Right, I'm going to press and hold these, so then if I go like this, they all get compressed. So, okay, it's perfect. Right, that's the table we want. So it asks for, between 1977 and normal, right? So 1977 and normal. So we don't really need this line right here. So let's delete this. So I click on the V and delete. So we're only working with these two, right? Next, we're looking at they only want, I actually guys, for arrests, injuries, fires reported. So arrest. So we're going to delete all the rows, right? Staying in task 1, remember, don't delete them from the original, right? Don't delete them from the blackout. Delete them from here. Just only delete the ones that we don't need. So we don't need duration of blackout, so I'm going to click this and highlight all the ones we don't need. So delete those. Deaths we don't need. We don't need injuries of civilian or police force, but we want firefighters, so we're going to keep that. So delete these. Fires reported, we want single alarms, we want personnel, we don't want civilian and Red Cross, but we do want police force. And lastly, we could delete the 911. So these are the ones that we're concerned about. Basically, data that's in both categories, right? And we want to calculate the percent, right? This is your normal, this is your 97.7, this is your normal. So we want to calculate the percent of change, right? So I'm going to call this new column, percent of change. Double click it to make it bigger, right? So this is our normal. So this is our original, right? This is our normal. So remember, percent of change is initial minus final. So original minus new divided by original, right? So our original is our normal in this case, right? So we're going to do original minus the new, right? Or the different one, right? 1977, that's not your normal. Divided by the original, right? So that means we have 6. What did we forget? We forgot the absolute value. Remember, ABS is absolute value. So there's not a 6% change. This is decimal of 6. When we make the percent sign, a 600% increase, right? This was a 600% increase, and you can see it went from here to here, right? Do the same step. So copy this and do it for this one as well, right? Paste it, right? A 1500% increase. So usually only five firefighters there. Usually they have in 24 injuries, right? In 24-hour, 80 firefighters were injured that day, right? Those 2 days between July 13th and July 14th within a 24-hour period, right? Let's copy this. Single alarm, over 100% increase, right? So more than double. Copy this, paste it, right? 315% increase, right? Paste it again. So you see all the numbers, right? And remember, these numbers are different from your numbers because I changed it up. But as you can see, there's an overall increase in percent, right? Again, we want to, let's put borders around this. Click this, all borders, so it's a nice table, so it fits in, and that'll be your table for task 1. Then I want you to answer the questions, right? Next one, task 2, using the summary of economics table, right? choose an impact area and create a pie chart representing either the indirect or the direct losses for the subcategories, right? So let's go to original. We're talking about this table right here, summary of economics. So let's copy this, open up a new sheet, so plus, right? Call this task 2. Let's copy, right? Let's paste it, right? I'm going to drag these out a little, drag this out a little, so we have more space, right? And all of this, I'm going to highlight and click right here so it gets nice and squished together, right? So we have all this. Let me do a little more. Fix this up, right? So there you have it. That's your table, right? Now each one of them has major categories, right? So your major categories are right here. Your impact areas are business, government, consolidated Edison, right, or Con Edison, insurance, public health services, other public health, or Westchester County. What happened there, right? I want you to choose one of these impact areas, right, and create a pie graph using either the direct or the indirect losses. Now the easiest way is just to highlight and insert pie chart, right? The actual pie chart, yep, insert pie chart, right? The easiest way is to do that. So let's say I did business, right? I chose business, so I could either choose the direct losses or the indirect losses. You don't have to do both. So I choose, let's say I chose the direct losses, right? So I highlight all the numbers in direct losses, insert pie chart, and there you have it. There you have your pie chart of your direct losses, right? Title, right? Let me close this. It's going to be chart of direct business loss from Blackout of 1977. Right? Now, I like this one a lot, right? This chart a lot because it not only shows you the, and make this bigger so everybody can see it. It not only makes the pie chart, but it also shows you the percentage, right? Now, as you can see, these numbers are really small, right? These words are really small. The way to make them bigger is, again, just click on it, go to your home, right? Just increase the font size, right? Same thing for these numbers. Increase the font size a little bit. That way, it's nice and easy to read, right? So you have your different subcategories. These are your subcategories: food spoilage, food loss, securities, and banking industries, right? And that'll be for business, right? For direct losses. You could make one for indirect. And remember, you have a choice, so you could do it for any impact area. It doesn't have to be for business. It could be for any impact area you want. So you could even do other public services and do incorrect. So you're going to have a lot of different pie slices for this one, right? But you could create something very similar to this using any other impact area. Now for task 3, I want you to create a bar graph using the losses of the public health and other public services, right? Now this time you're looking at these two components right here, right? So let's go back, create a new sheet. This is going to be for task 3, right? And the reason mine says sheet 15 because I'm showing all of them, right? So yours not going to say sheet 15. If this is your third one, it's going to say sheet 3. So we're just let's copy this table, copy, let's paste the table again. I want to spread it out so it's nice and legible, right? I'm going to click on all these, highlight them all, click right here. That way they get squished together in a sense, right? Move around, play around with it. So that way it saves space. And then zoom back out, right? There's some space here. So on and so forth, right? So I can fix this, right? And this time I'm only looking at the public health services and um, the other public. So I could actually delete these. I don't even need these, right? So delete. I don't need the businesses, right? So delete everything except these two right here, right? Public health services. Now I want to create a bar graph from them. And the best way to do this is make a separate line for each one of them, right? So let's say we have these, right? These are indirect losses. So I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste them over here, right, on the bottom. And these ones, these have merged cells, right? So we want to take those merged cells out. So we'll copy these two and paste them here, but we want to unmerge everything because it's going to mess up your data later on, right? So while highlighting, click on this button. This will unmerge and just delete these extra cells. So right click, delete, shift up, and this will again just be, it looks like two cells, but it's actually one. You see how it's under 26? And delete, shift up. So there you have all your data that you're going to be working with, right? The first, these are all your indirect losses. These are your direct losses. Now the best way to make a bar graph out of these is you highlight them all, insert, first one right here, column, that first chart, right? So let's make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see, right? I'll take this out, right? There you have it, right? Now, again, remember this is incomplete, so this is going to be, use that to label the axis, right? If you don't have that feature, that plus button, right, what you could do is click right here, click chart design, add chart element, axis titles, add a primary one, and then again add vertical one, right? So these are going to be your industries, right? Or your impact areas, right? Impact area subcategories, right? And these are going to be your losses. Dollars of how many, what is this, millions, right? Losses in millions of dollars. Losses in millions of dollars, right? Chart title is going to be bar graph of losses for multiple subcategories during a blackout, right? Something like that. So let me zoom in, right? You're going to have a chart that looks like this, right? So again, losses, direct and indirect losses. Indirect losses from blackout of 1977 in, this is public health losses, right? Public health losses, public health service losses from blackout. So it's going to look something like this, right? And then answer the questions based on this chart. All right, so move it to the side when you're handing this in, move it to the side. So that was for all of them, right? I would highly recommend that you guys look at the video for your case study first, right? And to have a better understanding of how to create graphs and charts, I would highly recommend that you watch the entire video, right, at your free time. Again, it's a pretty long video. You don't have to watch the whole thing in one sitting, right? But watch them to have better understanding of how to create line graphs and bar charts and so forth, right? That way you have a better understanding of the entire lesson. Right, so what will remember what you hand in is, if you're doing, let's say, blackout, you would give me the 3 tasks, right? Task 1, task 2, task 3, make sure you rename them, right? Or if you do triangle factory, you do task 1, task 2, task 3. Remember, you only do 2 of the tasks, right? You don't do all 3. You only do 2 of the tasks out of the 3. So work on those and submit them to me on Blackboard. If you have any questions, let me know, and keep on working on the integrated assignments and the regular assignments. All right, take care.